Hello and welcome to Decorate It. My name is Mary and this is Wes. And tonight's episode is episode 5. We are talking about leather grips. How fun!
Cowskin.
Specifically cowskin tonight. Yeah, there's different variations of leather grips, and the ones that we have worked with up until this date have been just cowskin, if you want to call it that. What is your favorite style of leather grip that we've done so far? Even though it's not the most traditional kind of grip that most people think of when they think of rod building, we've kind of started playing around with it, and it is very versatile in our opinion. But what is your favorite?
Favorite that we have done would probably have to be the braided leather that we did on our challenge rod a few years back.
So you mean this one?
Yes.
I brought examples for those that are watching. Those listening, basically this is a leather braid that you can use. You got the idea from looking at bicycle handles, didn't you?
Yeah, because they take them and do the same thing on some of the handles, just with a thinner leather usually. It's the same leather that you see on some saltwater grips. That's like the black with perforated holes in it. You can do the same thing with that, but we did it with, what is that like? It's like 6-ounce leather.
So you took it, you stripped all the oils off of it.
Yeah, put it in, I believe, acetone.
Yeah, to get
And
everything.
stripped everything off of it, even the tanning process that they did. And then let it dry, cleaned it with water, and then used an antique on it to get all the dark colors back into it.
And one of the reasons why we did do this, because this was for our state build for the
Yes.
International Challenge that year, was you were trying to imitate the palmetto tree bark at the bottom. And so the braiding of it back and forth really does look like the bark of a tree.
Yep.
And it's really comfortable.
It's super comfy.
Like, it's not squishy. It doesn't give like the EVA does, but there's cushion to it.
Yeah. And you have like a texture to be able to grab onto.
And then the other one that you did on the same rod, because you did the leather pretty much on this one, was this top piece, the foregrip. You decided to kind of, tool out. It's kind of just,
Yeah.
it's not really tooling, but it's more like you're kind of shaping the leather into a design.
Yeah. Because you're drawing it and then filling it in with an antique.
And Wes did the palmetto tree with the moon for the South Carolina state flag, and then you ran antique over it to get the texture of it to show up. I did enjoy the entire process of that build. We learned a lot, obviously. So if you're watching, there's a better shot of the palmetto tree, but literally just did as best as we could copying the palmetto tree without actually copying it, with the little half moon for the South Carolina state flag. And then he actually cut a real seat apart. It was Alps at that time. He took the metal chunk out of the middle and put leather on that little insert piece. And the other challenge for that year was to put the names of the components you used somewhere on the rod. And so he decided to do it on the real seat part. So that one was pretty fun. My personal favorite is the tooling. I have quite a few.
I'd say so.
I have quite a few rods that have that on there. My sugar skulls became the initial start of that because I had this leather and lace concept, and I dropped the lace concept.
So of those ones that you have tooled, what was your favorite one to do?
Gosh, two of my
You really
girls.
gonna pick that over the dragon?
I liked the dragon. I really did like the dragon, but I don't know. I liked all of them that I did.
Pick one
Fine. My favorite is actually going to be
that you like the best, but that you enjoyed tooling the most.
I enjoyed tooling the most. It's her.
Okay.
It is my sugar skull that's on the yellow jigging rod that won the People's Choice Award this year.
So this one.
Yes, my darling girl. I actually have the first failed version of her. The first version of it broke my heart because I didn't take into account I wanted to taper from the real seat down. And I had this massive gap and I couldn't fix it, so I had to redo her. But I also did the flowers for... Basically, this build was for your mom, who passed in 21. And I put all of her favorite flowers and her butterflies and stuff on it. So it's complete memorial rod. So that one was my favorite to do. But I mean, I also had my other girl. I actually did my pink one. Well, I call her pink, but she's a purple rod. She was just a girl that I saw online, and I fell in love with it. And so I ended up tooling 4 different sets, the one that's on the rod, and then 3 other ones that were all different sizes. And I spent a lot of time and effort trying to figure out which version I wanted and how much I wanted it to wrap. But since I had these extra ones, this is where I got to put the durability test. This one, never, the biggest one that I did, I kept her as just this is what she should look like. But the other 2 that did not land on the rod, I actually sunk them in a saltwater mixture and a regular water mixture for a week. I just dropped them in, just into the water, left them, sealed the container. They sat on the counter. Our kids tried to open them 1,000 times. I pulled them out, and they looked just as good. Both versions of them looked just as good from the day that I did it. The saltwater one had a slight patina on it from the salt getting on it, but that just cleaned right off.
And it was a much higher salt content than the ocean.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, science mixtures of salt water. So I don't
It was
remember.
like 50-50.
No, it wasn't. It was the legit, like, if you were trying to make salt water at home kind of thing. So, but they did great. And so those are my favorite. And then Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster was fun. I actually carved a really large version of it, not even thinking when I did it. This was actually too big when I went to wrap it around the rod, so I had to do a different one, a smaller one. And Hulkbuster was actually the easiest out of all of them because there's not many lines on him from his body that I did.
I don't know if I can hold this with one hand.
But that's also the one that you put the aluminum butt on, so it's kind of heavy.
It's a stainless steel one.
Stainless steel. Stainless steel. But Hulkbuster was fun. Yeah, and this is the dragon one I did. I forgot to talk about that one. So for this year in the International Challenge, I decided to I like themed rods, if you guys can't tell. I wanted to do like a story in the grips. And there is a Chinese legend, but it's called Dragon Gate. And basically it's the story of, like, if the koi fish can jump 3 different waterfalls to get to the bridge at the top, or the gate at the top, and then they will be rewarded with being turned into the golden dragon. And so I thought the whole concept behind it was kind of cool, because for me as a rod builder, as long as I keep trying to do stuff, I'll get to where I want to be, or try to do. The dragon was definitely the dragon and the koi was the hardest out of everything that I've done to date. Absolutely pain in my butt, but I did enjoy the process. But they're all stitched onto the back, and if you ever do decide to work with it, you have to wet the leather and then shape it. So I have to, like, wet the backside of it, put it on there with rubber bands, let it dry overnight, basically. When you pull it off, it's conformed completely to the circle, and then you just have to, I stitch them on. I soak the back again.
And there's all kinds of stitch patterns you can do to it, too.
Yeah, I do kind of like, it's basically a cross stitch, but it's, like, doubled up.
It's like how you do your shoelaces, kind of.
Yeah, so it cinches everything in really tight.
Whereas I did the one that it's kind of a hidden stitch.
Yeah, I forget the name that yours is, but yours is like a straight line. You just see the stitches, but it snatches everything in really tight too. So if you do try it, the stitches, you have to be aware, and there's different materials to pull it together with too. I chose
It's like
the waxed thread because it was the strongest, and the stitch lines for me personally, and you holding the rod, we don't mind them because you can go over them with another, like, buffering kind of tool, and it makes them really smooth.
Yeah.
You don't really have to glue these bad boys on because you would literally wet the back, stretch them, because you cut them just a tiny bit too short, so they're have a little bit of a gap, and then as you wet them and you stitch them in place, and it will dry, basically cemented on there. It's very rare.
You size it properly. But it has to be almost like exact as far as the sizing.
I've had a couple I had to redo, which actually it was my yellow one. Yeah, Hulkbuster needs to get fixed too because I cut him too perfect. He's a little loose, but all I did was put a piece of drywall tape underneath of it with
and it'll cinch right up
with the rod bond and let that dry because I wasn't going to stitch it while it was curing, and then came back and stitched it on that way, and it did perfect. There's a couple videos I have on TikTok of me fixing it, I believe, where I was like, oops. So it's definitely unique.
Then there's also stacked leather.
Mm-hmm. Like you would see in knives.
Yep. You see it in knives. A lot of times people will put a coating over top of it that gives it like that glossy finish.
Would they put like oils or something?
But you can do oils, you can do antiques, and you can paint the different stacks of leather. And I want to try it where you don't really do much to it. You just kind of finish sand it and leave it raw.
What's the other version? So you can do braided. You can do the wrapped ones. That's one we hadn't really touched on.
Where it's side by side, being wrapped around it.
It's kind of like the wind grip tape. It's that same
concept.
thinness. You used to see it a lot on the old tuna rods and stuff, because if it got tore up, they could just pull it back off, rewrap a new one, and they're good to go. I think the only person I've actually seen build with that in the last 10 years is Mark on that tuna rod that he made for AB1 that one time. And I was like, I'm bringing the old school back. And it was nice. There's different weights of leather. Like I use the big, thick stuff I would use for like belts and stuff like that because of the tooling that I do.
But you can treat it just like cord or anything like that, because you can make tools that will cut, 1/4-inch strips or 1/8-inch strips and braid it however you want to.
Oh yeah. It's like I was actually kind of looking through a whole bunch of different leather techniques tonight, just kind of refresh my brain, because obviously I do what I do, but there's more stuff than just the tooling of the leather, and there's the wrapping, there's the braiding. You can Nuno is the one that has been messing around with. He did the ray skin, all of that decorative leather that you can find at Hobby Lobby or online. Like any of that stuff can be used in any part of the rod. It doesn't. Nuno's book, Inspirations, that he has, he's got 2 or 3 in there that he's used some sort of leather on, and he's wrapped it, and he hid his scene. He put something over it as a decoration to hide where it came together.
Like that one with the ray skin where it has like the white leather topper going down the back.
And it just completes it. So there's a lot of various things you can do, not the heavy duty or painting and stuff like that, but and I'm working on a project currently where the gentleman wanted a Hawaiian tiki rod, and I'm using a little bit of the leather. I put a tiki on one of them and his logo is on the other one, and that's going to be the tie-offs for the leather. And now I'm going to take the back and I'm going to shave it down like crazy so it's real thin and tapers.
Yeah.
But you can use it for a lot of different things and add character to your builds, in my opinion. And it's not too hard to get into. Like, honestly, all the tools I use for all of this stuff, minus the paint. The paint's been just a collection of colors I needed. But the toolkit for cutting leather is literally like the basics off of Amazon that I've been using. It's not
elaborate or anything.
I think I might have spent $40 on it. I had to buy 2 other stamps that I needed, edgers, bevelers, like 2 of those things, which those 2 are actually the ones I use the most. But
and once you get into like all the shading and putting patterns in it, then you're getting more expense in tools, but it's still not that bad.
No, I mean, they're everything. All those little stamps are made out of metal. They're not going to break or anything, and it really sky's the limit.
So, what would you say is the number one con to using leather?
People's fear of it, because it's not normal. That's really the con. I would say the only other con is there's a different texture to it when you're working with stuff like this.
I would say it's the maintenance.
Well, yeah, it's not that much though.
But it's more than foam or cork or wood.
It is true, but even so, to lead into that, once they're done and I'm finished with it, so like I'm finished with this girl, I want to put her on a rod. She has to have a top coat on her, and then that has to dry completely. So that top coat acts like a sealer. But then you have to waterproof it to take it fishing. And so you have to heat it up. You can put it in the oven if it's not on the rod, but usually when I do the waterproofing, it's after I've got them on the rod. So I have to use a hairdryer.
Yeah, because you don't want that to crack as you bend it either.
Right. And so I usually will heat it up with the hairdryer and then rub what's called Snow Seal on top of it, which is exactly what people use for their boots and gloves and stuff that they want to waterproof. And you just rub it in and let it soak in, and you do 1 or 2 coats of it depending on how well it took, and you good?
I was about to sneeze.
I saw your eye twitching. And then you might have to touch it up once or twice a year with that if you're starting to see that,
It depends on how much you use it and abuse it, and how much water touches it and heat.
But even with that, even if you only did it one time, let's say you did it one time.
It'll still be okay.
It's going to be fine. You'll get a really cool patina that happens to it, so you'll start to see like a roughness happening, but you know, you got to think of it. It's like saddles. Saddles are out in the rain. They're out in the weather. Most of the time they're put up at night and stored properly, just like your rods would be.
But you still have to maintain them.
You still have to maintain them a little bit. But even with EVA grips, you got to clean them every once in a while.
Yeah.
You get slime on them, you're going to wash them down. Now, granted, maintenance on this is a little bit more tedious.
Yeah.
Once or twice a year. It's just one of those things you have to decide if you're willing to do it. Your braided ones aren't going to need as much maintenance as one of these would.
Yeah, because it's no color, no paint, no extras. It's just antique.
Yep.
That's already soaked in and been sealed. What would you say the biggest pro to using leather is?
The fact that if it ever gets destroyed somehow, it's easily replaced. Every single... Now, there's two.
This one would be a little tough.
There's two rods that we have. My pink-purple Sugar Skull actually has a thread ramp that connects to the grip. So if she ever gets messed up, that's going to be a pain in the butt to actually fix, because I took that thread ramp and put flowers over top of it and epoxied it to the grip. So I'd have to rip off the thread ramp at that same point. The other one that would be a pain if it ever got messed up is the beach one, because we also epoxied over the edges of the grips. But you could do a clean cut right around that, rebraid it, and
put it back.
back.
And then just seal back over the gap.
Yep. So not too terrible, but it is one of those easy ones where if you ever have to dismantle the rod for whatever reason, you don't have to remove the reel seat, because you can just cut your grips right off. So if you change your mind, you're like, I don't like this theme anymore, I'm going to fix it. Snip, snip, snip. It's gone. So the next basic thing that I want to talk about is our fails that we've done with the grips.
Which one?
All of them.
You mean when I was like trying to braid it and had antique and acetone from my head to my toe and said, I can't touch anything, I need you to take this. And had it all over the shop?
We were learning how to do it, and he was feeding it straight out of the container, because it has to be wet whenever you go to put it on there. And I don't think you had acetone on it at that time. I think it was just the stain.
Was just straight water and stain.
Water in the stain to get it to stick or to shrink down, because you have to stretch it as it goes. And that particular thing needed myself and you to do that project, because I had to turn it as he was like putting all of his Superman strength trying to stretch it and wrap it around, and then hold it as we're still trying to turn it.
And then turn it and then stretch it.
Because you tried it on the wrapper, but the wrapper didn't have enough resistance for how hard you were pulling.
You had to like hold the wrapper and the rod, because I would go to wrap it and it would jump. And I'd lose where it was.
You were pulling it out of the chucks or the stands, basically. Me, personally, I learned an invaluable lesson with the very first grip that I ever did. Well, she wasn't a grip. This particular little girl that I did, she was the first Sugar Skull that I saw, and I fell in love with the concept. And that's actually the one that started the whole fiasco with this leather stuff. But she was going to be a decoration for a tie-off. So she was at the end of
kind of like how you did with this, as a tie-off, but a grip. But
yeah,
just a tie-off.
Well, yeah, most of those grips kind of went into the wraps, because I wanted the wraps to look endless. But she's like the tiki one that I'm working on now, where she is the tie-off. But I got her all tooled up. It was very first attempt, and looking at her, she looks rough. One of her eyeballs is bigger than the other. Like she's. She was actually cut too short, because I didn't measure 3 times before I cut it. And I was like, oh, well, it's leather. It'll stretch. No big deal. And I stretched her to fit on there. And in the process, I distorted her face dramatically. And it looks terrible. And I will keep her until I either pass it on to somebody else or I die. But I will keep her to remind myself that you have to cut it a little short, but not too short, because then you'll stretch and ruin everything you have to do. So I had to do her again, which at that point in time, that was the second time I even tried to do leather. So it was just practice at that point. It's like somebody got on my post yesterday or today. Yesterday, because I had just put up the painted tiki, and we all had mixed feelings about the painted tiki. And
I didn't have mixed feelings.
Well, no, you straight up were like, no. I liked it, but I didn't like it. And I was like, I feel like
it would look great without all the colors in the wrap.
So, well, I was trying to get kind of like that retro kind of vibe thing with the tiki, because I'd seen it on like the pictures that I've been using as inspiration and stuff. And I couldn't match it, because it's an inch. It's very tiny. But when you held it up to where the wrap was, where it was meeting the grip, it kind of overtook it, and it looked cool. And the guy said, "You're going to ruin everything awesome that you did." And I was like, you know what? I have to take a few trials and fails to get what's in my head onto the rod. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I don't take that personally. Just be patient with me because there's a process I go through. You know, I'm going to try something. If it looks good, cool. If it doesn't, I'm going to and do it again.
Yep.
I got no problem with that. I think the only other fail was not measuring properly, not taking into account I had a thread ramp to go,
Making the pattern too big.
making the pattern too big so you couldn't even read it. Like for
Or
this
pattern too small.
this little girl, if I had used her, now she's my favorite because she's so big. I could get all these really big, like cool details into her, and like I'm always going to keep this one. I got to put it in a frame or something so she doesn't get
You should make
ruined.
that into a wallet for yourself.
Oh, I could do that, right? Could make a patch or something. When you wrapped her around the blank, you ended up just seeing not quite an eyeball, not quite a nose. You lost the whole. You would have to completely rotate it. And I was like, even though I love how she looks, that's too big. And the size I chose was actually a size bigger than the saltwater demo, which this one is so much flexible being in that water. It's just like it just bends like it's supposed to. And these grips, actually, I didn't even skive the back down. I wasn't in that stage yet, but the next ones I started to progress to thinning out the edges so they taper better, and every single one of them have a story. And this tiny one that went into the water and is stiff as...
That was the one in salt water.
No, this was the regular water. I've got it marked on the back so I never forgot. She was the one that got messed up the most, and I don't know why. The regular water just did something to her.
Chlorine and fluoride.
Probably. So I'm trying to bend her real quick. She would have actually been what most people would have preferred because you would have seen more of her face on the front, but I hated this extra black space that was around her. I felt it was just lacking character. And at that point in time, I hadn't thought, well, maybe I should just slap two patterns together because that's what I did with this one.
Yeah.
I found a picture that I loved, and then I took a sunflower picture and I cut it in half and put one at the top, one at the bottom, and fill in that dead space because she couldn't get any wider. So I couldn't make her
Not for
just
that rod, no.
big her. Yeah, because that was a very tiny rod. And then Hulkbuster, I need to finish him because he's just...
It'd be really cool colored.
Yeah, because he's actually... I cut him the same size as her.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think about it, and I was like, that rod's not the same size. What did I do that for? So I had to do another one. But if I finish him, I could have another version of him flat, and then I could do that little light show thing in the middle I wanted to do because you wouldn't be holding it. It would just be a display. So we could actually have the arc light up like
Yeah,
I
'cause
wanted.
I've got all the LEDs and buttons and...
Yeah, because I, you know me, whenever I want to do it, I'm going to go crazy with it. Whoop.
Y'all have to excuse me. My allergies are killing me.
So that's basically the fails in our testing. And basically, to sum up, leather is fun and durable, and it's easily replaced. You don't have to do the fancy stuff like we've been doing with the tooling or even the braiding, but the wrap is a real easy way to get into it. And they have the real thin stuff. They have the decorative stuff. You can literally just take a walk through Hobby Lobby where they've got all the leather
And,
stuff.
What's the other place? Tandy Leather.
Tandy
here
Leather's a
locally
good place
for
to get
us.
some ideas for stuff. We have one in Charlotte, but it's almost an hour from here, and I don't have a chance to just go drive up there and spend money. I mean, you can order from them online, but I'm one of those people that
You
likes
gotta
to...
touch it, feel it.
Yeah.
There's different grades of leather too. You can get, some really high quality grades, and you can get some really crap stuff that it's not proportional all the way through.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you have to watch out for. If you're buying cheaper leather, it will not be the same thickness all the way through. That's why it's cheaper.
And I will tell you guys where all of this stuff comes from is Hobby Lobby, that belly roll. I use that. It's like, I think it's gone up to $50 or $60 for that roll, but I've only bought a roll twice now. I was using all my scraps for like practicing making bracelets and stuff at one point, and I had thought about playing around with some earring ideas and stuff, and I just, all the shapes were cut out. Still, I was finding them in my scrap bag, and I was like, oh yeah, by the way. But the 12-inch rears on those took up a good chunk of that. It has some blemishes. Like there's some points where like there's a mark running through the skin that even if you stain
Like a scar or something on their skin.
I stained most of my girls black, so they have a black background. So even those scars and stuff, I could hide. They weren't going to be visible. But if they were in the part that I was tooling in, I couldn't use that section. It's a gamble, but they do have. I think now they've got the smaller sections you can buy from. The leather section's expanding, but when we were talking about the different aspects of leather, that upholstery leather that we walked by because the kids were all
Oh
touching
yeah,
all
with
the.
like all the texture and stuff.
Yeah, you could actually use some of that, I believe, for if you were doing wraps. I'd have to check the durability. I mean, it is upholstery leather, so it should hold up to a good bit, but it would be if it would take the waterproof element or not. You know what I'm
Because
saying?
there was one there that was a really nice pattern.
Yeah. Anyways, there's various things. Check out Nuno's Inspirations book for ideas other than the stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah.
He's done some fun stuff with it. And, if you have any questions about it, like, we're happy to answer them. And then we're not, and Tandy's a great resource because you'll tell them what you're doing and they'll point you in the right directions for the stuff that you need. Because I did walk in there the first time and I was like, I don't know what I'm here for. And he was like, well, that's not helping me.
Well, that doesn't help. So.
And I explained it to him and he was like, okay, here we go. And here's the proper ounce you should be doing, and here's some waterproof stuff, and here's some top coat and resist and the antique, and and really only played around with like 3 or 4 of those things
Yeah.
because I know what they do. I know what's going to happen
And
with
you can
them.
buy different colors.
They've got
too.
all kinds of different stains.
I saw like
and
there
antiques.
was red leather and green leather and black and blue and purple and orange and
I just like to get the natural stuff and do what I want to with it. But yeah, there's tons of colors and tons of people online. Leather workers are selling. I can't remember the name of it now, but I follow them. It's a company you can buy all these crazy leather, like the fake leather that looks like snakeskin or has alligator. I don't know if it's real alligator or not, but it has it printed on there. The ostrich skin, any of that stuff. But I do want to take a minute to give a shout out to our sponsors, American Tackle. We love them. They're awesome. They are now officially part of the Foundation Outdoor Group.
the Sukatu.
Yeah, the Sukatu.
Sukatu and all the carbon handle components and carbon seats and the handle systems. So see, I prefer the handle system more so than the Sukatu. Because I don't want to be limited to just that.
Yeah,
I want to have the components to be able to go, okay, do you want a full carbon all the way through? Or do you want the blank to show? Or do you want the butt not to have carbon on it? Or the rear grip not to be carbon? I want options.
you know why they did the Sukatu though?
Yeah, I do.
Because there was a lot of builders that were coming to them and they're saying, "Hey, I don't like to do the grips and stuff. I hate putting the grips on there with the real seats."
It's 10 times easier.
And so they were like, "Well, bet we'll just make one that has the grips and the real seat connected, and all you got to do is glue it on there. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am." So that was the whole point behind it. They listened to their consumers. Their consumers were telling them, "Hey, I'm just not a fan of doing this." And they said, "All right, I got you." Wham, there you are. So I believe that's supposed to come out Q4, which should be
It's supposed to be
December-ish.
soon.
Should be soon. We'll see. I don't know
But
if
that may change with the
transition, but yeah.
logistics going on currently.
Yeah, the logistics. But if you are going to the Mudhole Advanced class next month, I will be there. Wes will be there with me.
I'm working security.
He's working security. I'm teaching 2 different classes on thread art, which basically I am going to be deciding in the next couple of weeks my kind of curriculum. I actually reached out to Todd Vivian and Bob McCamey, and I was like, "Hey, if it's not too big of a deal, could you email the guys and ladies that are coming and say, hey, what is some stuff that you expect to learn in these classes, so I have a better idea what their background is instead of walking in there blind, expecting teach them beginner stuff and they've all done a wrap or, vice versa."
Or starting advance and nobody's done anything.
Right, and have to switch gears real quick and get them back on the same page. And, that would just be a luxury to have, as somebody coming down to present that kind of information. Even if I don't get any information back, because sometimes people don't like to answer their emails because it comes, you're one of them. They miss it or it goes into the spam folder or, whatever the case may be. But if they don't come back with feedback for that, then I'm just going to go in there and teach them basically the best way to set it up and guaranteed going through all of how to set it up, what the taper offset spacing is going to be, tension, packing, and then
I
the
think
second class will be some more
majority
advanced
of your
techniques.
time on that first class, the moment you bring up tension, that's going to be it.
I actually plan on bringing the tension sticks, because I made those 2 years ago for the seminar I did at the International Custom Rod Building Expo, and those were a hit. And actually, since I've made them, I've actually sent one home with one of the kids so she could work on her tension. And I pulled them out various times during live videos showing people. And when people come to the shop, I pull them out because I don't have to sit down and yank, do it real quick. I've already got them done, and the tension's holding great. It's been 2 years.
Surprisingly,
tension's great. It's perfect. So I think I might have to add a couple more. There's going to be like 30 people there. I don't think 8's going to get passed around the room very fast. I have to add a couple more. But they're easy because it's just 5-pass chevrons to check your tension on. But yeah, I think we're going to wrap up and end the show. I do appreciate you guys hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.